When did you first grow curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to House of Asher.
Hey everybody, this is House of Asher. I'm your host, Steve Asher. It works out really well that way. And you're listening to episode 80. And this is, well, a whole lot of reasons this is a pretty cool episode. First of all, our illustrious guest, who I'm not telling you yet. But we're just now going out on TalkStream Live. It's sort of our maiden voyage. And let's see what we can do. Hopefully it'll be, it won't be a Titanic. God forbid. God forbid. I'm sure it's going to be great. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. And as always, make sure to check out StevieAsher.com and also go to the House of Asher podcast on YouTube. And you can also find it on Spreaker. You can find it out on iHeart, out on, I think, Spotify, and also, as I said before, TalkStream Live. So anyway, as you know, I'm kind of a... well, as most people, if they're honest, are somewhat self-serving. They like to do stuff they enjoy, and they like talking about stuff they enjoy and things that interest them. So here it is. What we're doing is, being a 70s kid, growing up through all the different kind of weird stuff that we grew up in, you know, I was really turned on to a lot of different kind of paranormal stuff and a lot of historical stuff. And, you know, it was like the times of stuff like the, like Where Did All the People Go? Like that made-for-TV series and all that kind of Red Scare stuff, which we will touch on that as well. But what I want to talk a little bit about today is mainly cryptids, specifically American monsters, which is the title of our guest today, Mr. Jason Offutt. Are you there, Jace?
Yeah, sure am. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Absolutely,
man. I'm calling you Jace like we go out for lunch or something. Hey, Jace, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm not going to call you Steven. Steve's cool enough.
Honestly, well, everybody called me Stevie growing up, and it's funny. You know, I'm a 49-year-old balding guy. You know, big kind of balding guy, and people's like, Stevie, really? I was like, man, I'm not that kid. We like ate from the same dirt pile. You know, we literally grew up together. So that's usually how folks know me. That, you know, they call me Stevie. So there it is. But
well, and Steve, I really dig the command, the yellow command shirt that you've got on your social media.
Man, you know, I go to my signings, I wear my geekdom literally, well, not on my sleeve, but on my chest. My first signing, I grew up, obviously, again, loving horror and sci-fi. And, like, late 70s and 80s were, like, perfect for that. And so my first book signing I did for, like, my Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary book, blah, 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 I wore a Stephen King It shirt because he was sort of my mentor by osmosis of reading his books. And then, as you saw on that particular signing, I was at the Paducah HeroCon, which they'll have again this year. I'm kind of giving a little plug, but that's cool. They're good people. A lot of cosplayers, and I made sure to wear my Star Trek shirt. So, yeah, I was reading in your About the Author book and stuff, and it was just like I probably would have known and hung with this kid in the neighborhood when we were small. You're firing on the same things. And you've got that same sort of kind of throwing it back and forth wit. It's really cool. Should make for a good interview if I'll quit talking.
Well, then I hope I don't mess things up. Thanks for setting me up.
No pressure, right?
Right.
No pressure. So good God, man. I mean, I've only got two. Well, I've got my third book getting ready to come out, but geez Louise, man, you've been slamming these out since like 09 or something like that, or before that?
07. Yeah, it's been 07.
Okay. Jeez, that's a lot, man. And
yeah, well, the monster books, Chasing American Monsters, it's coming out in March, is number 15.
That's groovy, and that's what's so interesting is everywhere has some form of a cryptid or some like Hogzilla or something. There's some crazy creatures out in the woods, and my area of Kentucky is no different. And this is where the podcast is coming from, Western Kentucky, and we have an area called LBL, Land Between the Lakes, and a lot of guys come down here and go. There's areas and places they can go hunting in times, or they'll go camping, or they'll just go hiking and stuff. And inevitably, there'll be somebody with a story. Man, I was seeing all these trees like 8 or 9 foot tall, kicked down at angles. We were hearing wood knocks, or we were hearing whatever sort of activity. We smelled really strong odors, and then boom, they were gone. Not like, it was like something dead they walked on. It's not going to go, but it would like hit really strong and then fade off. So, it's weird because, like I said, you do a lot from your home state. For the people who aren't hip, maybe just getting used to some of the podcasts, which you've been everywhere, man. I'll just throw some out there like Coast and Dark Matter and all those different ones. Give us like a quick little, I guess we would say Reader's Digest. I don't even know if that still exists, but a Reader's Digest version of kind of who you are from your point of view.
Well, dude, I am. I grew up. Well, I grew up about the same time you did. I'm just a couple of years older than you. Grew up on a farm in rural Missouri, and I've been fascinated by monsters and all things paranormal ever since I was a kid. There were stories back when I was, when I was about 6-7 years old, in the local newspaper, in the Kansas City Star, about Momo, the Missouri Monster, and that absolutely fascinated me. That in my home state there was a Bigfoot stories, and they were in the newspaper. So I kept up on that story. I remembered, and every time the Scholastic Book Club order form would come around during school, I'd get books on Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and all that stuff. I've been a journalist for a long time. I worked 17 years in the field, and I've been teaching journalism at Northwest Missouri State University for the past 14 years. And been writing a lot. Having summers off as a teacher is a blessing.
Well, and that's it. Sort of. It seems like people find, especially people that are artists, they find whatever vocation. Sometimes that will kind of lend toward their, I don't say their hobby, but their aspirations and the sort of things that they really feel that they need to get out. It's not even a thing. It's like it says, well, why do you like to write, or why do you do a podcast, or why do you whatever do investigations or teach other people about investigations? And it's like, well, it's more of a thing that I just felt like I got to do. It's
right.
It's not a choice.
Exactly, because I write nonfiction about paranormal topics and travel as well. But I also I'm a novelist, and people ask me why, why do you write? What makes you want to write? And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to. I have to. It's I'm driven to tell stories. I've been a storyteller all my life, and I can't pin down one reason why I write other than I couldn't imagine not doing it.
Yeah, it really does seem that there's when you use words like driven. I mean, that people, I think sometimes they use it in sort of out of hand or sometimes in the wrong context. It's just like it's I don't want to say a compulsion, but it is a thing. I'll be doing whatever. I have 5 minutes, and it's like I really should be working on that chapter, or I really need to call that guy about getting him in here to talk about doppelgangers or whatever. And sometimes it's hard to switch it off. I mean, do you find that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My mind, it's always working, and if I hear something on TV or on the radio, or I'm walking to work and I'm getting close to campus and I see something and it pops an idea into my head, I write it down. I always carry a pen and a reporter's notebook with me just in case an idea pops up, because they pop up everywhere. And if I have any kind of an idea, I just right then I write things down.
So kind of a la Carl Kolchak. Always has his little recorder or his notebook or something with him.
And that's a great childhood memory. I watched that when it was on.
Yeah, I've said this before. I'm gonna say it again. I'm sorry, guys. But when I was a kid, my dad was a cop, and had actually worked in the penitentiary that I worked in as I grew older. My granddad was in there for like bootlegging or something, and but I really connected with guys like Carl Kolchak. So I would find like one of my dad's old fedoras or whatever and get like an old library card or something and put press on it. Just such a little geek, man. And be running around trying to interview people in the neighborhood, and they're like, Stevie, go home. It's so it was just like you said, certain kids are hardwired for sci-fi and these weird little curious adventures, and that's not to say, I mean, I like, I guess, sports to a point. I mean, I'm not a weekend watcher, but played it somewhat as a kid, but there's some people who are just built for sports, built for horror, built for research, and a lot of times it seems like it takes years and years for people to find each other. If you're lucky enough to have one or two friends who kind of dwell in that same cave, you're pretty lucky.
Right, and yeah, I do hear at the university where I teach, and it's really kind of fun because the two of the guys that I talk about this with are one's a physicist and one's a chemist. So I've got doctors, I've got PhDs that we will we'll talk about paranormal stuff, and they're all in it, and I'm like, hey, these dudes are scientists. And they're really into the paranormal, so I like that, that validation.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we'll get more into the books. I apologize, I'm just sort of talking geek with you, but it does sort of seem
That's
like...
all right, man, because you said we'd probably hang as kids, man. I know we would.
Well, it's a thing, because, I mean, I'm still talking about, like, $6 Million Man, dolls, and, like, running over, jumping over logs. I don't so much as now. I'm, like, 49, I'm not jumping over too many logs, but... When I did, it would be the na and all that mess.
Absolutely. Let me just throw this out. A couple of years ago, I got a press pass to go to Comic-Con, and I got to meet Lee Majors.
Oh man, you suck.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing ever.
Did you ever see him any of his later work, like on Ash versus Evil Dead or any of that?
Oh yeah, well, I couldn't not see Ash versus Evil Dead, and what a great choice for Ash's dad. Yeah, he was great. It
was great, and like I said, the comedic timing of it and all that, because people kind of forget that. I don't know what it is. I think for some reason they think there's a certain shelf life, and I see this more as I'm a little bit of an older guy now, but it's just like muscle memory. I knew a lot of guys that did working out and stuff like that, and they'd always said, like, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It's a black gentleman. He was like, was it Tony Atlas? Big muscle guy. Anyway, and he said, I never really fully developed my muscles until I was close to 50, because your body continues to grow and to change to a certain point, and then, it's easier to kind of keep your physique once it's at that point. It's like the old term, old man strength. That's a real thing. And I think it's also true for geeks. You have old geek strength or old geek knowledge. As of regards of my home, it's all over the place. I have a lot of kids that like anime. I have some that like, Doctor Who. I have some that are kind of into Star Trek. They're more so now that Vic Mignogna is doing I think a Star Trek Continues, which is a big anime guy. So I'm kind of easing them in. I'm kind of converting them step by the time. But so let's wrap about your books. Especially this latest book. And please give out the title again. And also, where are some links where people can get them if they want to contact you? And, feel free to touch on any events and stuff that you got coming up. And we'll do it again closer to the end of the interview.
All right, yes. We've got links to my books. I mean, they're all on Amazon, and most are on BarnesandNoble.com. Just look under my name, Jason Offett. I've also got links to everything on my website, which is jasonoffett.com. It's Offutt. My latest book, Chasing American Monsters, is due out in early March. Right. And it's available at it's available for pre-order at, again, Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And at the website, the publisher is Llewellyn, Llewellyn.
Awesome. And just for those that, for whatever reason, if they have a problem finding, Chasing American Monsters, Creatures, Cryptids, and Hairy Beasts.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I butchered it too bad. But so let's talk. And, I have family in, like, southern Missouri, or as most people here say, Missouri. And, you hear those stories. There's so much farmland. There's so much, hollows and just kind of areas. You talk to some folks that maybe are more like around Lexington or wherever, larger towns in Kentucky. They get that there's woods, but they don't get the vastness and how deep and untraced these are, because everybody thinks, oh, well, they're just our states. They're pretty much, they know about it and there's people there all the time, but it's really not. There's so much open space. That's why you get so many people lost in national parks. That's just a part of it. did you explore a lot of those as a kid, or did you kind of live I'm blanking on the word.
Vicariously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You are now my thesaurus. Thank you. Living vicariously through that, through the like books and series and things like that when you were a kid.
Well, I did a lot of that. I read a lot of books. Never missed an episode of In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. But yeah, I told you that I'd the Bigfoot, the Missouri Monster. I grew up in an area that there were patches of trees here and there, but mostly it was just farmland. And when corn was up high, I would take a backpack with a few sandwiches and chips and a bottle of orange Fanta and a notebook and just every sorts of stuff I thought I would need, and I would just disappear for hours and hours wandering through the cornfields looking for Bigfoot footprints. So I never found one, but I did spend some time out looking as a kid. As an adult, I've gone on a couple of Bigfoot runs before, and I've never been lucky enough to experience anything.
Right. For the most part. Well, go ahead.
I say maybe I've never been unlucky enough to experience something. I don't really want to run into a Bigfoot. These things are great. I love telling stories about it, but I want it to happen to somebody else.
Yeah, I want to see the Bengal tiger over there. I don't need that. I don't do well with that.
Right. I've got a buddy from high school who lives in Lexington, Kentucky, and he and his wife have a cabin out in the woods, and he posts pictures every once in a while. Well, we went to the cabin this weekend, and there's pictures of black bears all over the place. I'm like, yep, I don't want to stay there.
Yeah, check please. Yeah, see that's. I mean, I'm country enough growing out, like I said, in a little town of Princeton, Kentucky, Salute, and but. We didn't have black bears here. We're, Western Kentucky, and it's just weren't many here. A lot of bobcat and stuff like that. And whenever I was like more in the woods, generally the only thing I found was like chiggers or stuff like that. Or sometimes I'd find like the farmer's bull that I didn't know was out. It would chase me across the field. But I did learn to traverse a lot of the creeks and learn to know, okay, well this creek will lead you down out to the edge of the county, and this will lead you out here, and which makes sense. If you're if you're tracking animals, they're going to find a water source. Most animals, if they ever find bones and things, they're going to be around a water source or whatever, just because they have to have water, obviously, just like anybody. And for the most part, I've definitely never seen a Bigfoot. I've heard stuff that sound like knocks, like continual, like 1 2 3 or 1 2 3 4 knocks, and then like a minute or so later they would repeat. So I kind of doubt that there's a 4 or 5 stones falling and then another 4 or 5 stones falling in the same repetition. But I don't want that. I have a good friend, Lucas Fralix, who's on our little investigative team, and he's all about it, man. He's, like I said, everyone's hardwired for something. I was always hardwired for ghosts, and coming up on like stuff like Hammer films and all that stuff, and the local late night movie show out of Nashville. I was hardwired toward horror. I was hardwired toward sci-fi, the original Clash of the Titans and stuff. Fantasy. That was where my head was at. And if there was a chance of running into Bigfoot, especially after seeing Andre the Giant in $6 Million Man,
yeah,
that scared the frick out of me, dude. I was just like, I had no clue until I was quite older. I mean, until it was like I was this 0 days old. I mean, I had learned this maybe in the last year or two that was Andre the Giant, and it was terrifying. He was really spooky for a little bitty kid back then, and that sort of set the tone with Bigfoot and me.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, that was the first time I had seen Bigfoot was on the $6 Million Man, and it wasn't until The Legend of Boggy Creek that I got to see something else, and Bigfoot wasn't portrayed very friendly in that movie either.
No, I had actually saw. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I saw a show called Bigfootville, and I think it was done around. It was 2000s because it kind of had that 80s hangover. You know how like on the coast, everything it changes fashion usually, and then it slowly ripples into Midwest. And so it was probably like 2007 or something, but they were still kind of shoulder pads and high hair. And but it was interesting, man. And like you said, you can definitely see how different regions treat different sort of. I don't mean like treat them as being adversarial or not, but like what was that movie, man? There was an Independence Day when they were standing on top of the big building and says, welcome, take me, beam me up or something, and then they went, sick, boom, goodbye. I think that people here in sort of a more rural area are a little bit less touchy-feely on it. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone's wanting to go shoot them, but it's definitely like, look, they stay out there, we don't bother them, they start inching up on our stuff, start snagging our pets, trying to snag our kids, then I'm going to do what I can do. But how did you like feel in regards of like all this different people? Obviously, you had to learn and speak and interview people and find out about different experiences from people. Overall, what was the feeling that you got? Do you feel that just from all the exposure to like some of the Bigfoot shows and stuff like In Search Of growing up, has it changed people's views?
It really depends. The people out there researching Bigfoot, the people with just a general Bigfoot interest are more fascinated than frightened, because here's this literally big unknown that might actually be related to us wandering around the woods of North America. So I mean, that sort of thing is absolutely fascinating, but the people who experience the thing generally are scared. I mean, why wouldn't you be? You're out in the woods and you smell a skunk, and all of a sudden, you notice that, no, it's not a skunk. It's this, 8.5 foot tall, 700 pound, hairy beast staring at me with glowing yellow eyes, through the trees. And this is exactly why, because people will ask me this question. Why isn't there any good video or good photographs of Bigfoot? Well, if you're that person standing 20 yards away from one, the last thing in your mind is pulling your phone out. What you want to do is to get out. And that's generally the, everybody who encounters it generally is, I am terrified. I have to get away from this thing.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people is this, again, having worked in corrections, whenever we'd have people come in, especially people who are new to it, some people walk in, they hear the gates close behind them, and they go, yeah, I can't do this. They just know. Before they hit that final gate, it's like, no, I got to go up to my car, or I got to do whatever, and they're gone. People would mock them and make fun of them, and I'm like, no, they are very smart. They're following their primal lizard brain that tells them there's death past that door. There's something horrible, at least, something you're not prepared for, and we should listen to that more. They're smart. The odds of one of us getting, really tore up, hurt, stabbed, whatever, is worlds higher than these people who are using their freaking brains and getting out of here. And I wonder if that's true too of people in, Bigfoot encounters, or whatever, dog men, goat men, and whatnot. How many people, actually do run into something supposedly and have interactions that are physical. I hear a lot about rocks being thrown, trees being snapped, stuff like that, vehicles being messed with and tore up, food being messed with. But I know a lot of people play some of that off to bears, but last I knew, bears didn't throw rocks.
Right. Well, and what you were saying about they just didn't feel quite right and they left. That is advice I give everybody who asks. Or even if they don't ask, and I know that they're going into an area that this is a haunted spot, or there's supposed to be Bigfoot here. I tell people, if you feel this for some reason, you can't figure out why, but you feel panicked, your chest gets tight, your breathing gets really fast, you get the cold chills, you got goose pimples, leave. Come back another time, because there's a reason that you feel like that. There's this one haunted spot that I've been to near where I live, probably 24 times. And one time I went out there by myself. Warning to listeners: don't go out by yourself. But I went out there and I got out of the car, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. And this is a rural abandoned church and cemetery, and it was like all the air was sucked out. there was no breeze. Nothing was moving. Normally out there at that time of night in the fall, I can hear coyotes. There's night birds. There's insects. Nothing. I heard nothing, and I felt that. I felt that panic, that fight or flight response, and I just left. I don't know what it was. I mean, was there a negative spirit there? Maybe. Was there a bobcat in the trees? Maybe. Either way, I didn't want to mess with them, so I just left.
Right, and that's exactly, which was the point of the impulse. It's I've been through a lot of different hauntings. And I say it in air quotes because I don't know what. I don't claim to say what if ghosts are anything, if they're even real. I've encountered things that I could explain. I've encountered some shadow people and things like that, and you always get like a little quirky, sort of something around. But those times when it's like it's really, like you said, it's really primal. I can't put it in any better way. Just it's extremely visceral urge to get the heck out of there, and I listen to it. And I'm here talking to you today. Could it have been anything? Could it have been nothing? Very unoften do I get that. Even working in the prisons back in the day, you kind of learn when you get that really high red alert flash going off on you. Listen to it, and when you talk to people who are researchers and live in different areas, have worked in different areas that are considered hostile, they get it. You may tell it to somebody who's never had to live that life, and they'll joke it off. But just because they don't know, it's not that they're willfully being jerks; they're just ignorant of the experience. So I try not to be too hard on naysayers on stuff, because I'm definitely not a believer. I try to be a skeptic, but there's so much out there, and especially in the deep woods,
Right, and I try to view things, from a scientific point of view. I grew up, my first love of a TV show, well, other than Scooby-Doo, was Star Trek, and Spock was my favorite. So I mean, I've grown up with, let's think this through logically. What can it be before I say this is a ghost? What else can it be? And generally it is something else. But sometimes, man, especially when I saw a full-bodied apparition in my house, when I was 10, I'm like, I think that's evidence right there that I can see.
Yeah, well, see, and that's what's so funny is that I was going to ask you, because again, I grew up reading comics like that doesn't show. Grew up reading a lot of comics, especially a lot of Marvel and DC and stuff. But I will use that DC as a reference. I always go, what was that origin story for you? What was and if it's something you want to talk about, you talked about seeing stuff when you were about 10 or so, when you were small. What happened? What was that? If you want to get into that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your books.
Okay, well, yeah, I had again, I grew up on a farm. The house we lived in had been a schoolhouse. In fact, my grandma taught there, and my dad and aunts and uncles had gone to school there. But it was, after the school closed, it was turned into a 3-bedroom house, and that's where I grew up. And the house the building had been like 120 years old, even back when I was a kid. So, back in 1872. But yeah, so other than that, I really didn't know the history of it. And we had a hallway that was outside my bedroom door, and that's where Dad had put a bunch of bookshelves, and that's where the World Book Encyclopedia was. And I don't know how many times I read the section on dinosaurs, so that's probably the book I was going to get. But I walked out of my bedroom. It was a Saturday afternoon, and it was all bright and sunny in the house. And I walked into the hallway to get a book, and I saw a little boy. He was about 6 years old. He had brown hair that was parted on one side. It was kind of tousled hair. He was wearing a blue flannel shirt and blue jeans, and he was staring at me. And I don't know what kind of shoes he was wearing, because I didn't look, because I could see through him. I could see the bookshelves through him. And we stood there and stared at each other for a while. I have no idea how long it was. It could have been 10 seconds or 2 hours. It was probably 10 seconds. But he blinked. And that broke my shock, and I turned around and walked into my bedroom and shut the door. And I didn't talk to anybody about it for like 30 years. When I talked to my family, nobody else had experienced it. It was just me. But that got me really interested that, ghosts are real. There's something out there that we don't have scientific explanation for. And at some point in my life, I really wanted to investigate that sort of thing. And hey, when I grew up, I did.
Well, let me ask you now. You classify this more as a ghost and not like a shadow person, because I knew you'd, you didn't you do the thing, the Hat Man documenting cases of pure evil? Weren't you?
Yes, I had seen shadow people as a kid as well in the same house. For a short period of time, they would just walk through my room and absolutely scared the hell out of me. But they never took notice of me. They were just passing through my room, and it was the typical shadow person. It was like a fridge magnet. It was black. It was two-dimensional, and it was human shaped, and it was I just walked by my bed and out into the hallway, and it did this for a couple of months, not every night, but every once in a while. And eventually it just stopped. So no, it wasn't a shadow person, because I could see what the shirt looked like. I could see the blue jeans. I could see this kid's face. I can still see it in my head right now. It was a ghost. That's the only thing I can say about it.
Wow. It does seem that these events leave indelible marks, and basically you're changed for whatever reason. You have these experiences, and I know a lot of people have, and I'm not asking if you've had any sort of alien visitation or whatever, which it's always, you have different camps. Some people are like, I'm sort of a centralist. I'm like, look, there could be aliens, there could be this, there could be, parallel universes, there could be reptilians, there could be whatever, or there could not be. One or the other. But you've always got some people who's like, well, yeah, I've been researching ghosts, and we do this, and we go out in the graveyards at 3 a.m, but wait a minute, somebody that's talking about aliens, come on now. Or you have the opposite, or you have the vice versa on it. But it seems like you are pretty much open to, like, similar to I am, going, well, I don't know. Who knows what's out there?
Right. Exactly. I'm open to all of those things. I am, as you said, skeptical. I'm like you on that. I would love for something to be proven. Whenever I interview somebody, about an encounter they've had, whether it be with a shadow person, ghost, or some kind of cryptid. I've got kids, and I was a journalist for a long time. I'm still a journalist. We never hang up that hat. But I've developed a pretty good BS detector. At least I hope I do with my kids.
Right.
And so when I've interviewed people, man, I know I have a really good feeling on the ones who are telling me the truth. And I'm not saying the truth on, yes, they definitely saw it, but at least they definitely think that they saw it. Right. To them, this is 100% true. And I can tell the ones who are feeding me a line of garbage. My rule of thumb is if you've described a ghost encounter, great. If you think during this car wreck that an angel came and helped you, all right, I believe that you believe. I believe, if you think you saw Bigfoot, yeah, I think you probably saw something. But if you've seen Bigfoot, talked to a ghost, have remote viewed Mars, and given JFK a back rub in the last month, you're probably full of crap.
Right, and you're the reincarnated Delilah or something from whatever. I mean,
I can't believe I left that part out. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Hey man, I'm telling you can't be a slacker on this show. Well, see, that's the thing. You develop that investigative quality, because the people talk. Well, I'm a journalist, but I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm like, well, do you research? Well, of course. Well, you are an investigative journalist, and you have to wear a lot of those hats, especially when you do books. I know by vocation, it was never my plan to do that. I started out as a musician and worked in radio, and good God, man, did all kinds of stuff in construction and whatever. It just happened to fall in it. But I do think that, I don't know, I don't want to say that there's no luck and happenstance, but I tend to believe more in synchronicity as the older I get, is that you're going to probably follow certain things where you're both suited for, and your interest will hold there the most, so you develop more of a keen interest and an ability to deal with those things, which maybe that's genetic, maybe that's whatever. But now you'd mentioned like your little ones and stuff. Do they seem to show an interest in writing and this sort of thing? I mean, if you want to get into that.
Well, sure. My 12-year-old, she's got a real interest in writing, and I drew a lot as a kid, and she does that as well. Yeah, the littlest one's too little to tell what she's interested in, but and you know, my son's into science fiction really heavily, so. Well, and they also like Dungeons and Dragons, and that's definitely Dad's influence.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in a second. But well, you know, that's the thing too is it's so funny because well, when we were kids, right? Because like I said, I'm 49 now. You know, I used to have my I don't know any way of saying it. I used to have my ass handed me, you know, for being a Dungeons and Dragons guy, and you know, my big brother. It took me for years to become a musician because I wasn't sweating that. I'm like, dude, man, I'm trying to save up for this, you know, for this new dice set, man. I'm trying to get this, whatever, you know. And so my brother's trying to show me Eddie Van Halen licks and stuff. I'm like, that's cool, and that's fine. I'm down with Diamond Day, but I don't want to learn the songs, man. I want to go do this. But so yeah, I'm definitely in that same camp. So say from now to when you were a kid, how many figurines have you painted?
Actually, I never got into that.
Really?
I never did. The only figurine that I ever bought was a 3-headed troll, and the 3 heads were Mo, Larry, and Curly.
Oh, that's awesome.
It would be awesome if I still had it. I have no idea what happened to it.
You need to find that, man. You need to search that out. I'm at the age now where, God, it's like I'm ancient, but you know, like remember when you were a kid and then either your mom threw out whatever, or like, you know, you had some, I don't know, Battlestar Galactica toys or Buck Rogers or whatever, and there's whatever reason these get chucked. Now I'm at the age where I'm finding little things. You know, I'm still trying to find like a Tweaky figurine or something that meant something to me as a kid. I can't do anything with it now other than maybe play with my grandkids with it now. I'm freshly a granddad. So, but yeah, there's something to be said for that. And I think once you get to that certain point, I mean, I don't know if you're a big metal guy or whatever, but like Kirk Hammett, man, you know, that guy from Metallica is a voracious horror movie fan and does all kinds of collection of like memorabilia, like the Boris Karloff Black Cat gear he had on and stuff. What do you collect? I mean, is there something that you collect now?
No, I don't collect. I really don't collect anything. I will, you know, when it comes to toys, maybe I'll pick something up because I mean I still like toys. I've got you know, like Next Generation medical tricorder sitting on my desk.
Sweet.
I like that sort of thing. But about the metal, I like to listen to metal while I write. And my 12-year-old came down the other day and she's like, "Dad, what are you listening to?" And I'm like, "That's Iron Maiden, honey." And she said, "It's not metal enough." What? Okay.
I like this kid. I mean, yeah, metal is awesome, but yeah, like you got like a real hardcore kid. But I mean, I don't know. I can't do a whole lot with the Cookie Monster vocals on some stuff.
I'm not big on the Cookie Monster. No. I like singers. I like singers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mind some yelling and stuff. I mean, because I kind of grew up on punk too. I kind of went from metal into like Sabbath and the roots of it, you know.
Man,
still
we're
love
nailing this. We're nailing this, man. I was growing up on the Sex Pistols, Ramones, Clash, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedys,
Bad Brains, Minor Threat. Yeah, man. I'm telling you, dude.
Suicidal Tendencies, baby.
ST. So that's what I'm saying, man. We would be out blowing up stuff with M80s on the street.
Exactly.
I guarantee it. But well, let me ask you this, because like I said, we've kind of went like 180 degrees from some of the books and the other stuff. Touch on some of the other books that we hadn't mentioned and some of the things, because you've got, it's like a kind of a wide berth of stuff that you've written about.
Well, and that's you know, really kind of funny because you got writers who get pigeonholed. I mean, King is Stephen King's horror, just flat out. But he's written some science fiction as well. But it's still, you know, it's still thrown into the horror bit. Man, I'm all over the place. I've got my nonfiction books. I've got Haunted Missouri, which is basically a tour book of haunted spots in Missouri that people can visit. Paranormal Missouri, which is just a bunch of you know, stories about everything. Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us. What Lurks Beyond, which was pretty fun writing because I put a pin in a map and measured out 100 miles and made a circle, and whatever was in that I could find in that circle, you know, the paranormal stuff. That's what I put in the book, and I found more than enough to fill a book with. And then, of course, Chasing American Monsters, which I went from state to state and wrote about all the cryptids in those states. And then I go I wrote a travel book. I drove from my home on one stretch of rural highway all the way to Canada. I've got a short series. It's 2 books of zombie horror. I wrote a nerd romance called A Funeral Story. They played Dungeons and Dragons in that too.
So kind of a la Mazes and Monsters a little bit. Did you ever see that as a kid?
I don't remember it. No.
Okay, I'll refresh you on this. And I know I jumped in there, but I have radio ADHD. So here we are. Mazes and Monsters. Tom Hanks. He was playing a cleric. And all his friends were getting ready to go to college, and he was going to go to college, and bright young future, and very Cosby-esque type family. Well, he got too deep into it, that dreaded Dungeons and Dragons, and he started having visions of like big like kobolds and different monsters and like Sleestack looking critters, Gorn looking monsters and stuff. So anyway, he ends up like jabbing some hobo in an alley, and he's like forever into this character, and so his friends, go off to college, and they do one great last adventure, and they play a big game, and then I guess he goes to a mental asylum. So, yeah, D&D scary.
Right in my wheelhouse too.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I love the fact that you're turning me on to stuff, and I'm turning you on to stuff. And it's just like, hey, like, dude, look, check out my collection of, cassettes. Oh, cool, man. Here, can you make me a copy of that one? Hey, can you make me a copy of that one? Bam, bam. And so our mental library, our nerd library grows.
Yeah, let me just, if you want to hear, real nerd, he jabbed a hobo in an alley. If he was a cleric back then, it would have been AD&D, and clerics couldn't use pointed weapons. So,
well, see, they tried to take his bag of spells. And for whatever reason, he broke character, which then would have made him a lawful evil character, or no, he'd be an unlawful neutral character.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Christ, if somebody's listening, please email me.
Chaotic neutral, yeah.
Yeah, let me know, man. But What Lurks Beyond, I believe you said, has a very kind of Twilight Zone night gallery vibe to it, which I dig. I really loved those shows growing up.
Yes, I still do. That's the best thing about New Year's is the Twilight Zone marathon.
Right.
What Lurks Beyond, the coolest part was that I didn't. It's not loaded with ghost stories. I mean, there are a couple of famous UFO encounters that are in there. There's dogmen encounters. There's a guy who invented a time machine, demon possession, shadow people. I mean, there's a black-eyed kid story in there too, and this is all within 100 miles of my house. And the thing is, if it's that all those things are within 100 miles of my house, those things are within 100 miles of everybody's house.
Right. And that's what's so crazy, like you said, because I'm not sure the exact spot where you're at, but or where it was based on. But if people think of like Missouri, I'm sure they'll think of like a certain area, just like most people say, Haunted Kentucky, Waverly Hills, or maybe they'll talk about in Tennessee, like or Eastern State Penitentiary or something. There's a lot of creepy little spots, more than people realize. It's just maybe the old tales. People have aged out. Maybe they didn't pass it on, and maybe just people. It's sort of like maybe you live in an area and you grew up for generations, and there was a certain type of fruit or something that grew only in your area, but it's common to you. Y'all ate it so much, you're like, I'm tired of that. And then somebody says, "This is incredible. Why don't you?" Man, we've had it here forever. It just, it's became ordinary. And there's these ordinary, extraordinary tales that come from small little areas and little locations. That's where I'm at too. That's why I write so much about Western Kentucky and that area. But yeah, Twilight Zone was huge, man. And the guy was so prolific in everything he did. Even had his hands in Planet of the Apes and the original script. And so
that's how we got the ending, was from Rod Serling.
Exactly. And that's a lot of people don't realize that. my family, I'm like this guy. I'll go on, I'll do like obviously a tangent, and I'll go on for like a 20-minute tangent on how the ending was formulated like this, or how they wanted it to go on to be this, and I was like, well, they were going to be in skyscrapers. They're going to be wearing fedoras. It was like Mad Men Monkey episode, and they're like, okay, that's cool, but we don't care. And I'm like, no, but you need to care. And so then I get chased out of the room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Well, the 1968 Apes.
Yes. Well, I mean, I actually had got, and again, I'm so far off track with this, but this is the show. I'd actually got some of those on Blu-ray and stuff, and I was like, hey guys, we're going to have a marathon. I'm still waiting for the marathon. They've still not sat down yet. I'll get them there, which I have grandkids, so it's going to be awesome. I'll be dressing somebody up as Dr. Zayas or something for Halloween, I'm sure.
Right. I still have the 8-inch action figures, the Planet of the Apes action figures from when I was a kid.
Dude, man, I don't know what to say. It's so cool that you still have that stuff.
Yeah, well, and I've got Star Trek and Steve Austin too. So,
dude,
yeah.
Does he still have like the pillable skin and stuff, or has it already come off?
Oh no, the skin rotted off.
Like quick. It's like I remember the one I got. I think I got mine secondhand, but it was like at a yard sale. It wasn't bad, but it had already started to kind of crack and take off and stuff. So I think I put a Band-Aid on it. I try to poor boy fix, I guess. But well, let me ask you this. Obviously, you have the new Cryptids book up. What is your projects up after this? And also, you've got a whole lot of different appearances and stuff. If you want to throw some of those out, especially like conventions and whatnot, signings.
Well, the only convention that I have right now is HauntCon in Omaha, Nebraska, in late February. February 20. I'm looking it up. February 20th. No, it's in March 23rd. March 23rd, not February. And it's HauntCon Omaha. Yeah, I'll be speaking and signing books there. What have I got up next? I'm working on chasing Canada's monsters right now. And I've got that I'm working on, and I also
I have to ask: do you find that they are more polite than American ghosts? Do they smell like maple syrup or anything? I say this having friends in Canada, so maybe they won't come after me.
Oh, I've got. When my travel book, when I drove to Canada, that was the first time I'd ever been. Everybody was so polite. It was terrific.
Yeah, they were very cool.
It wasn't like Trailer Park Boys at all.
You know what's so funny? I'm laughing because when me and my wife were very, very much involved with special needs adoption, and we were flying back from Thailand with one of our boys, and we had to land in Canada around Edmonton. And a friend of mine is, I'm going to give him a plug. He plays in a punk band with the name of all things Chachi on Acid, like Chachi from Happy Days. Yeah. Right? I mean, you won't forget the name. So, and I was like, hey, yeah, man, I actually was in your neck of the woods, And he's like, oh, where'd you go? Quebec, Ontario? No, I was at Edmonton. You mean Edmonton? I said, hey, dude, that reminded me of home, but you guys were just a little bit more nicer. Nobody shot at me. So, it was pretty chill, But, anyway. But, yeah, that's killer, man. And I know you got some different radio stuff going on and all that. I really want to extend an invitation, man. Anytime you want to come down, if you ever happen to come through this way on the way to Nashville or anything like that, please stop in Princeton, man. There's all kinds of stuff I can show you here, all kinds of different hauntings. LBL is not far from here, and there's so much history about everything from UFO related stuff that they've talked about, like underground reptilian stuff. Some stuff gets a little edgy, but there's a crap ton of Bigfoot, crap ton of Dogman, even different types of Bigfoot that kind of seem like they are almost a amalgamation of like a dog and bear, or a bear and Bigfoot. A barefoot, a big bear.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely friendly.
I'm telling you,
a lot of great stuff in my book I covered the Hopkinsville goblins, the
Geraldine Stiff
monster. The Harrington Lake monster, which It's one of those that it's like, wait a second, it's a man-made lake, so where's the monster? I don't know.
Right. Well, we had a bad habit of taking like towns when we were bringing electricity to Okentuck here, and go, sorry, like what was the thing? Like, sorry folks, park is closed. It was one of those, hey guys, you got to move. We're going to put about 18 billion metric, gallons of water coming through here at like an ass ton of, speed. So you got to go. When you hear the sirens, too late. So, and there's literally towns like say like around the penitentiary in Edible that are like ghost towns, underwater ghost towns. And when the water's low, sometimes you can still see some of the chimney stacks and whatnot of the houses and stuff. So
that's great.
It's super creepy, right?
Yeah.
So, but
sorry,
no,
folks, the park is closed.
Yeah. Well, I try. Well, you mentioned as soon as you said Canada, I thought of John Candy.
Yeah.
So,
and
but
why wouldn't you? Yeah.
You should, and it's a good memory, man. I love John Candy. Well, let me ask you, man. Like I said, in the last couple of minutes that we got, for those that are trying to do writing, be it paranormal or whatever sort of writing, and you being a teacher, which is super great. I'm like not worthy because, like I said, I'm just like stumbling through it. I'm just trying to learn. I mean, I'm getting it, but I'm just learning. Is there something that you would say, look, this is a hurdle. This is something that, some words of encouragement, because I'm forever getting people asking me, hey man, how do you do it? How did you get into whatever? What's the one thing, if you could give yourself like a younger version of yourself advice to what to not to do or to do, what would it be?
Wow, I can't really give just one. I'll give three, if that's all right. Yeah.
Lay it on me.
All right. The first one is you've got to study the craft. You have to learn grammar. You have to learn how to put an active voice sentence together, because what we're taught in school, and I am not criticizing teachers whatsoever, through the school system, they are awesome. I couldn't do one of their jobs. That's my college. I teach college. But learn how to put sentences together.
What you talking about, Jason?
Yeah. To read. Just read, because that's how you learn things. It's one of the other ways you learn things. Read some Stephen King if you want to do horror. Read John Grisham if you want to do, want to do that. Just see how they do it. Don't copy them, but see how they've done it. 3 is once you start a project, finish the damn thing. That's
Preach.
one of the biggest problems, biggest hurdles that people have is they kind of get bored, or they're like, oh, this is a book. I've got 10,000 words and it's supposed to be 90,000. It's too daunting. Just break it up into little sections and just finish it. And I guess I'll throw a fourth one out there. Don't think you're good. Never think your writing's any good. Always try to improve your writing. Every single writer, I don't care what they've done. I can guarantee that King, J.K. Rowling, any of these are still trying to get better.
Right.
There.
And I'll add two. First of all, if you're talking about like King and stuff, what I find is in a great writer, or let me change that. Great writer in regards of interactive writer. They will tell you their influences. They will tell you, oh, I grew up reading Poe, but I also, grew up reading this and that. Maybe Wordsworth or some different sort of type of poetry or whatever. This, Isomov or whatever. These guys I've read and it influenced maybe this book. So don't just don't go to the tree, but look at from where it come from. Go to the soil and take, if you are interested in that style, guarantee he got some of that style from his forebears. We only steal from who we love, and consciously or subconsciously. But it's a thing of go to the root of it, and you'll have some of the same experiences. And if you're looking to have any sort of influence, and you'll find your own voice. You'll get to a point where when I was first started writing, my editor was going, "Listen, Steve, I know you're from the South, but man, you're not Tennessee Williams. We've got to unsweeten it a little bit. I'm getting diabetes. It's too southern." So I had to learn to balance that, and so I think that's really, really huge. The other one was, now for me, this works. If I write, I never have one project at one time. I probably have 20 starters, and I'll keep 3 on my desktop at any time. So if I get to a point where I'm just sort of like, I don't know, I could go this way with this, I could go this way, I'm going to take a day or so from it. I'm going to write on this a little bit, or I'm going to work on a cover for one of my books, or I'm going to whatever, or maybe I'll take 2 hours and listen to like a Sam Hain Misfits collection or something, and then come back at it. I think people get writer's block sometimes, and this could be a kiss of death. I may get it tomorrow, but you can't force certain things. You have to go with the flow of it, but you have to keep your mind busy. It's easy to, like you said, it's very easy to give up, and I'm not saying people willfully do it. They just get frustrated because writing can be a pain, and it is a labor of love. So that's what I would add to it.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. I if I'm working on a book, that's the only book project I'm working on. But I might crank out a short story or two. I also write a weekly newspaper humor column. So yeah, I'm always got my mind working on other things as well. That's important. And about writer's block, I found. I haven't had writer's block in a long time, in years, because I started writing at the same day, the same time every day, which is you got to write every day if you want to do this. Same time every day, in the same place, listening to the same type of music, having the same beverage in front of me or snack in front of me. And at that point, eventually, I got my head programmed to where, okay, all these things are in place. It's time to write. And yeah, I haven't had writer's block in a long time.
Right. It's almost like, okay, I have the fuel, I have the tinder, I have the spark. Now I can burn. Now I can burn to this book. And there's something to be said for training and sort of a muscle memory, which the brain is a muscle in a way. So once you do that, it's really weird. It's almost sort of a religious thing for me. I'll get out in my little office and I'll have my music, and maybe I'll have my different little horror stuff, Trilogy of Terror posters up, Silver Bullet posters, whatever. Yeah, man, I swear to God, it looks like a carnival haunted house in this little place. I'll send you a picture of it after the show. But
oh man, it's just the Trilogy of Terror. That was a great movie.
Oh, I freaking scared the crap out of me. Now I want the doll, but at the time I would have ran screaming from the room. But it's one of those things where, like you said, it becomes your habit, and it becomes your go-to, and it's sort of like somebody who really likes enjoying working out. I'm not one of them, but goes, man, I'm just I don't feel right. I feel like I need to go work out at least a little bit, and you get into that, and then, like you said, it becomes your normal, and it's not forced. It is now your natural. But Jason, we're just about at the end of it. Again, do you want to give out your address for anything, and again mention the con that you had coming up?
Okay, yeah. Just if you need to get a hold of me, go to www.jasonoffett.com. There's links to all my books. There's articles, short stories on there. There's all my contact information. So yeah, you can get find all things Jason at that point. And the con I'm going to be speaking at March 23rd in Omaha, Nebraska. It's called Haunticon Omaha.
Awesome. Jason, I'm queuing up the outro, and if you'll stick around long enough, I'd like to say bye to you on the outside as quick as I get done with this outro, bud. Thank you for being on the show, and I hope to have you back.
All right, great. I'd love to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right, sir. And everybody, make sure to go check out Jason's Offett's pages, and make sure to check out his documentaries and all kinds of cool stuff. Also, please do check out stevieasher.com and check out my YouTube page, House of Asher podcast, as well as this on TalkStream Live and all the other places I mentioned, Spreaker and whatnot. But most importantly, I want you to enjoy your day. I want you to go out there and enjoy all the richness of life and enjoy that sunshine. But as the sun starts to sink and the shadows grow long, make sure to check under your bed, in your closet, out that back hallway. You never know what's out there. There may be a hat man or a dog man, maybe a dog man in a hat. Wouldn't that be cute? Or it might be the Three Stooges. If so, send them my love. But above all, love yourselves and love each other. And until next time, don't be afraid to be a little scared. Good night, everybody.